LPG,
Okay.
no natural gas.
Yeah, okay. So most of our calls are out to LPG cylinders in the back of cars. We used to get a lot of calls for the big, I think the at the end of the day, the things on LPG, so we get called out to those. It's actually, there's a few things that's leading my thoughts at the moment. LPG, we look at LPG and you can't actually see it. You can't see it. So all you can see is when you turn on the service valve, you can sometimes see this white vapor coming out. Most of the time you're seeing smelling, actually, the gas. And in actual fact, LPG doesn't have a smell. It's odorless. And they actually put a rotten cabbage smell in the gas. It's called ethyl mercaptan. And that allows us to detect the smell as human beings. Knows the time to say, get out of here and let my nose. The liquid gas is like a murky coloured water, and it's bubbling away, not that dissimilar to water on a stove when it's boiling. And the steam from the water on the stove is not that dissimilar to the vapour being produced inside the cylinder. So the cylinders generally fill to about 80%, and then the top 20% is the vapour space. So that when you turn your service valve on a barbecue cylinder or the cylinders at home, big 90 kgs, or they're 90 kgs, 45 kgs, that's when you get the vapour coming out of them. Are there any questions at this point in time? No questions? I'm just going to helping us out tonight, because it just makes. What other names do we here in Australia call LPG? I'm asking for a few answers. First of all, what is LPG? LPG is liquefied petroleum gas. What other names do we hear it called? You go to Bunnings and people will often say camping gas, LP gas, barbecue gas. Yeah, you get those sort of names. So essentially it's all the same. And the gas we get in the cylinders is predominantly 100% propane in the barbecue cylinders and in the cylinders from that you use on your homes there in the country. With regards to motor vehicles, they're generally a mixture of propane and butane. Now, they can vary. Sometimes they're a 60-40 mix. More often than not, I believe they're a 70-30 mix. And that's a way for the refineries, I believe, to be able to get rid of their butane. It's a byproduct from the production of fuel. And that they mix that in. And now they mix that in when the vehicles are loaded at the refineries. So the way they mix it in is by just travel of the vehicle on the road, on the highway. It mixes it in, so they pump it into the cylinders at the service stations. Any questions at this stage?
Maybe just the properties, heavier or lighter, and maybe the expansion ratio is important too.
Okay, LPG, for every 1 litre of LPG liquid, its expansion ratio is 270 litres to 1 litre of liquid gas. All right, so that's pretty big. That's pretty big. I'm just going to go through my notes here. We've gone through the boiling points. Expansion ratio is 1 to 270. Steve, have you got any further questions, mate?
Just to state that it's heavier than air. So if you have an LPG leak, it's you're going to be looking at drains and downhill.
Yes, absolutely. The LPG is obviously much heavier than air. So when you get an incident, the vapor gas or the liquid gas will always travel downhill. So drains are, of course, an area where the LPG will travel to. We had a job a number of years ago where we was out in Wonga Park. It was a Sunday night. It was a plumber's vehicle, and he had a number of different types of cylinders, from acetone to oxy to refrigerant gases. But the vehicle ran on gas itself, and that had actually gone over an embankment and ruptured the cylinder. And the liquid gas itself travelled down through the drains of the estate. And when we actually pulled into the estate to attend to the job, all the utility covers had been blown off the drains right down through the estate. So somewhere along the journey, the fire had started, and all the caps came off the drains. Now, I would love it if there were some more questions, because I'm really out of my comfort zone.
Eddie, just a question, mate. I've dealt with this before. How many different types of cylinders do you have in motor vehicles, mate?
How many different types? Gee, that's a good question. There's a multitude of different cylinders, from your 100-litre cylinders to your smaller 80-litre cylinders. Sometimes you get long cylinders, not that dissimilar to an oxy cylinder. So they can be, say, what looks to be about 1.2, 1.5 metres long and only about that round. Sometimes in the Chevy vehicles, where they've got them on right underneath the vehicle, tucked in with cradles, 2 or 3 or 4 joined up at a time. There have been some interesting jobs. Years ago, where a chap decided to do a little bit of repair on the side step of his vehicle. And he drilled through the side step into the side of the vehicle, and he wondered why the metal was so thick, and he actually drilled into the side of the cylinder. So all of a sudden, we've got this situation where the gas in the cylinder, was absolutely no pressure in the cylinder. And the only way we could really rebuild the pressure in that cylinder to actually put a self-tapper in the hole, screwed it in, enough to build the pressure so we could burn the cylinder off. Now, Brad's just pointing out that there's a couple of questions online, so I'm just going to have a bit of a peek here. When should you call the flare off? Okay, if a cylinder's been impinged by fire, if a cylinder's been damaged, that's the sort of times you should be calling the flare off. What's a good idea is when the crews have been called, giving them a bit of an idea when they're en route, what they're to expect, because sometimes we need to create a plan of attack. Most of the time they're pretty standard, but sometimes we need to create a plan of attack, and it's just helpful to know more information. Are there any more questions? Brad's just looking at the questions for me.
Lifespan of a cylinder. Lifespan of a cylinder.
The lifespan. Okay, the cylinders need to be tested every 10 years. And they need to be pressure tested. I don't know if that gives them, 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know the absolute answer to the question of the lifespan of a cylinder, but I know that they've got to be tested every 10 years. I'm just going to actually go through
a couple more.
I'm just going to go to the computer and have a look at the questions. Just go through the gear a bit.
Just with the question, sir, with the lifespan of the cylinder, with the cars, does that vary with cars more than 10 years just because they're cars or not?
No, they have to be tested no matter what. Each cylinder is just 10 years max, and then they have to be tested no matter if it's in a car or anything.
I have just got a question from Sarah van der Velden. What sort of space do we require to flare off? Well, I don't know who's seen the flare off burners. We've got the flare off burner set up just on the tripod here. Our hose, which we have wrapped away at the top here, is a 20-metre hose. So the space that we require is a safe space of, let's say, 10 to 15 metres radius. You've got to make sure there's no overhead power lines, no branches, nothing that's potentially going to get burnt. So that's the sort of, and we always need a charged 38 line. So the brigade that's inviting us to their to the job, where possible, the charged 38 line is what we need, just as a safety line. As a safety line, we will set up the burner. We have a couple of little spare cylinders here. These cylinders are so we can set a pilot light up, so that for our safety, we can activate the main burn from a safe distance as well. I'm just going to refer to the notes. Sorry, it's a bit of a distance away, but Brad's going to show you a few of the props that we've got here that might prompt some questions. Okay, I got a question from Ken, and it's with regards to other LPG brigades. I'm just going to read a list because it'll help you probably better than me, because I don't know every town in Victoria. But we have Gisborne, Golden Square, Warrnambool, Grovedale, Officer, Patterson River, Summers, Leongatha, Trafalgar, Johnsonville, Narberthon, Montrose, Hoppers Crossing, South Morang, Sebastopol, Lake Boga, I think this is pronounced Merbeen, Wangaratta, Terrelgan, and as I mentioned earlier, the MFB have 5 scattered throughout the Metropolitan Brigade District. I'm just going to refer to the questions again. Okay. We have a question about CNG. Now, CNG, compressed natural gas. We fortunately, one of our members, his name's John Tasker, works at Kenworth, just down the road from us, and he actually did a presentation a number of years ago about CNG. We don't have the capability because the expansion ratio of CNG as opposed to LPG is so much bigger. I think from memory, its expansion rate is for every 1 litre, it's 640 litres. So it's quite a large amount. Now, in saying that, what I vividly remember him talking about was with vehicles with CNG, those vehicles predominantly have to be running pretty much 24 hours a day. They can't be stopped and parked in a facility, because after a short period of time, and I can't remember if it was 4 or 6 hours, the expansion rate within the cylinders is that much that the pressure relief valve would activate, and that would subsequently have the ability to fill up the inside of a building with gas. So, or even if it's parked outside. So these vehicles, as I understand it, need to be constantly running. He was very good with his presentation that night, but it's not something that we have been doing, or I don't expect that we will be doing it. Now with the rollout of so many electric vehicles and so forth, we're noticing that LPG flare-off itself is getting less and less. What I'm about to say is only a thought that I've had, and I don't have any numbers to qualify what I'm about to say. But I reckon when we first started back in the 90s with LPG vehicles, I reckon about 20–25% of vehicles were on LPG. And my thoughts are now that it's somewhere between 10 and 15. I don't have any records on that or evidence of that, but that's just an observation I've made over the years. I'm going to just go and look at some more notes because I can't see them from where I'm standing. We've got a number of interesting questions, and I'm going to go to the total fire ban one. There's a question by someone, sorry, I missed the name, with regards to flaring off on TFBs. We actually every year have to apply to the to CFA headquarters to get an exemption to be able to burn, use the burners on TFB should we need to. That's something we've just had to do every year. We need a permit just like everyone else needs a permit. There was another question, and Brad, you might as well follow me around with the camera for the moment because I just want to read this question again. What action would you expect the local brigade to do prior to the arrival? Is there any information you would like relayed prior to arrival? But basically, when you arrive on scene, you need to secure the scene the best you can. If you find that you've got a cylinder that's expelling gas, it's been damaged, you can't shut the system down. Of course, you're going to need to set up a fog and create a wind pattern to push that away in a safe way. But there's actually a few things you could do before you even think about calling the LPG, the flare-off units. And that is from the front of the vehicle to the cylinder. If you have a leak anywhere from, say, the engine compartment through to the cylinder, you should be able to turn the service valve off at the cylinder. And that should lose your problem. That should actually lose your problem. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to go to the cutout here. We've got a cutout with a multi-valve. This is what they call a multi-valve. And this is the service valve. So you should be able to turn that off. And in turn, what that means is any gas between this point and the front of the vehicle is just the gas that's captured in the copper hose. There's no more gas actually coming out. So if it's leaking from this point towards the vehicle, that gas should probably only be up to about a half a litre. And once that's gone, it's gone. It's if the problem is more so around the multi-valve or actually on the cylinder itself, that's when we need to come in because you can't fix it. We'll have to burn it off. You've got numerous different sorts of cylinders. You have cylinders like this, where you've got the 4 different points. Back here, you can just see that there. You've got the pressure relief valve. This is the service valve itself there, where when you turn this on, turn that off, that's the gas going to the vehicle. Of course, you've got your fuel gauge, whether full empty, and this is your line coming in. Now, sometimes we actually need to, when we burn off from a cylinder, we sometimes can't get into the cylinder ourselves because the solenoid won't allow us to. We can open it up, but it won't open it up for us. So we actually have to, we carry a magnet, a very strong, powerful magnet that we can actually take this solenoid off, put the magnet on the end, and it opens the little spring-loaded stopper inside. That's really handy. When we first started off years ago, we had a system where we would connect onto a battery and activate the solenoid. As time went on, we found the magnet to be a much safer way of going about it. You've got the cylinder like this. This would be very much like the cylinders at homes, more so in the country than what we have around here. This is what they would call a liquid and a pressure. Sorry, I'll start again. A vapor withdrawal. The liquid withdrawals have a dipstick that goes right to the bottom of the cylinder, and when you turn the service valve on, you'll get liquid. Whereas the ones in the home, they don't have the dipstick, and when you turn it on, you are purely getting vapor out of the cylinder. I'll show you a little bit about our gear. We've set it up in such a way where we've colour-coded a few items. You come across a lot of different size fittings. So we've colour-coded it so that the hose fittings are a bit flexible, so we can get in and around corners. We can actually attach it to whatever we need to attach it to, but we've also colour-coded a lot of the spanners so that anything that's got a red fitting, black fitting, we get the equivalent spanner. There's a spanner with the red, what do you call them?
Zip tie.
Zip tie, thank you. There's your black and red zip tie. So a lot of the members who are not using hand tools that often, it's just a good quick reference for them to be able to grab it and know that they've got the right bit of equipment. We've of course got carry the impervious gloves, so that's to protect our hands. So we're not putting our hands on the cold fittings and so forth and finding that we're sticking to them. Not a good thing. We wouldn't like it, and I certainly know that CFA wouldn't be a big fan of that either. Do we have any questions at this point in time?
I got one, sorry. So when would you have to escalate a job that's on a larger tanker that you would need more assistance? What kind of size tank are we talking?
Okay, we go up to the size of the. Can't remember what they call them. The ones at the homes are 45 kgs, and then the bigger ones that you at service stations is the largest we go up to. When it goes beyond that, then it becomes a responsibility, as I understand it, of the company that owns the vehicle, and they need to come in and decant those vehicles or attend to that part of the emergency. We're mostly cylinders up to the big ones that you see at the service stations, as in that fill the 9 kg barbecue cylinders, not the bullets. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions at all?
There's one here from Ken. How long does it take for a flare off a cylinder in an MVA?
Okay, good question. Good question. When we first started with our burner, as I say, back in 1992, we all thought it was going to take about 2 hours to burn off the cylinder. With our burner, we can do a 100-litre cylinder in approximately 45 minutes. So the little barbecue cylinders, the 9 kilos, in most of the cases, they're already empty by the time we get to the job. But if in doubt, give us a call and we'll come and make sure it's safe for you. But then the bigger barbecue ones at the servos, and I can't can anyone tell me, have they ever seen any in more recent years at the service stations, those big stubby ones? I don't think they're around anymore.
I think they do it like swap and go nowadays, rather than filling them on site.
More
Yeah.
can go.
Yeah, a lot of them do swap and goes and that. So I can't say that I've seen them anymore. I sometimes see them on properties, but that's the biggest we go. Are there any more questions at all? I'm really happy if you've got some.
Eddie, out in the rural areas, we still have those big boy fields around the countryside.
Yeah, Steve, how big are they again? I'm off the top of my head. They're not 90 kilos. They're 180 kilos.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
right?
so. They used to call them a fat boy. Yeah, I'm not sure how big they are. I'll Google it.
Oh, thank you. Big help. I've seen a number of those out in the country, and sometimes at caravan parks and sometimes biz and that. Out here, we don't see too many of those ones. I'm just thinking I'll go and have a look at that.
Factory that went up. That was the
Yeah.
only recent big one.
Yeah, but we don't have too many anymore.
No.
Yeah. I'm just going to have a look at the notes again. Has anyone got any questions while I'm looking at the notes?
I think that'd be about
We have
10 kilo, Ed. 210 kilos.
Sorry,
So for domestic,
210. Thank you.
45, 90, and 210.
Thank you, Steve. I'm just reading a question here, but they're getting a few questions coming in now. It's great. Just out of interest, I have here on my property a horizontal cylinder measuring approximately 2 metres long and 1 metre diameter. It's a 1350 litre. Yeah, so we don't touch those. We don't touch those ones. That would be the company, whether it's super gas or whether it's L gas or whatever the supplier is, they tend to look after those ones. We would actually still, if you've got a leak from it, attend to the job there and make it safe until they turned up and decanted it. It's not too often that they'll be burning those cylinders off, I wouldn't imagine. Just have a look here, more questions.
How long does it take you from getting on scene to when the flare starts to set up?
Yeah, okay, good question. We'll often arrive on scene, and it's fair to say that a lot of brigades, when they turn out to the job, I'll answer your question, but I'm going to go take a step back, something I feel is really important. Over the years, whenever we've responded from our brigade to a car accident or a vehicle fire or anything vehicle related, we always treat the vehicle as if it's on LPG until we know otherwise. What I mean by that is there have been a number of jobs that we've gone to and we'll get on scene, and even though they're supposed to have the diamonds, the stickers on their number plates, sometimes people don't put the stickers on. Sometimes if the vehicle's been involved in fire, they melt off and you can't see that there's a sticker. So you make sure that the vehicle is either petrol or LPG. Have a look around. Have a look under the vehicle. Have a look inside the vehicle if you can, of course. We had a job a number of years ago and we turned up at the job and I jumped out of the appliance, went to have a look, and someone said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making sure it's not on LPG." They said, "Well, it's not. It hasn't got a sticker on it." Well, guess what it was? And that was the thing that was just a catalyst in my mind to treat every vehicle as if it's on LPG until you know otherwise. That's just a bit of a safety thing. Now, I've got to go back to that question and I've forgotten the question.
How long from getting on scene to
Okay, so when we get on scene, we'll do an assessment. If it's a straightforward job, we'll put the fittings on, we'll set up the tripod, we'll do the burn, and often that can be 20 minutes to half an hour. It's not unusual for us to when we get called out to a flare-off job, knowing that we're going to be away for at least 2 hours from the time we get the call to the time we get to the job, till the time we do the burn, till the time we get home. Often it's 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. So that's generally the answer. Some jobs can be a bit more difficult, where the vehicle's been involved in fire and you've got to get in to the vehicle. And then sometimes you don't have the fittings. You've got to make up fittings, because some of the early days, especially the little Nissans, the 200Bs that came out years ago, they had their own fittings. They were foreign fittings, nothing that we had. So often we would actually have to utilise the parts that were on the vehicle to make the fitting up to do the burn. But to answer your question, generally around about 2 hours. I hope that's answered your question.
Yeah, it has. Thank you.
Do we have any others? I'm having trouble seeing it.
There's a couple there. Do you have a minimum crew required when responding?
Thank you, Sarah, for helping me out there, because I'm having a bit of trouble reading it with the light. At the moment, well, normally our brigade has a minimum of 3. Currently, with the COVID-19, we have a minimum of 2 in the support, or a maximum of 2, should I say. It's normally we have minimum of 2 flare-off operators and a crew of another 1 or 2 people. Doesn't matter. At the moment, with the current situation, it's a minimum of 1 flare-off operator and a crew member to assist. Does that answer that question?
I think so. And the next one there was, is there a special course that you need to do to be able to use the gear or to flare off?
Yeah, we do an LPG responders course, and it's been a long time since I've done it, but we do refreshers as well. But yes, there is a specific course to do. There's obviously, like with most, there's theory and then there's prac as well. The prac, we generally get presented with about 4 different vehicles or cylinders with problems, and we have to work out the problem, go through the processes on how we'd burn it off, and that's not unusual. And we just generally keep our skills up by the amount of calls that we've had over the years. And we haven't had an LPG course for a while, although we're hoping to have one sooner rather than later, but I can't give you a date on that. That's really helpful when you're asking me those questions, Sarah.
Not a problem. There's another one here from earlier. I'm not sure if we covered or not. What are some considerations for brigades responding to a possible LPG event?
What are some of the considerations? I'm going to have to refer to my notes on that one. Just bear with me a moment. Because we're normally the ones responding, not thinking about how to okay, how about some of you guys throw in ideas for me to prompt me?
Probably wind, if it's raining or something like that.
If it's raining, we go rain, hail or shine. We've had many jobs where it's just teeming down with rain and the job's just got to be done. There have been numerous jobs that we've gone to where I've actually had to get into vehicles and it's teeming down with rain, and the only way we can solve the problem is by working under a fog. And on a cold winter's day, working under a fog pattern, you know how cold it is. Yeah, rain, hail, shine, sunshine, TFBs, 45 degrees, you name it, we just got to do it. Any other questions at all, please?
So some of the guys have responded, look about wind speed, topography, what's down here, downwind, distance for the incident, members with BA, and making sure we've got fog. Callum, likeliness of the cylinder being impacted. So they're all really good considerations that you need to take into account.
I'm getting that in gobbledygook. I didn't quite get
Yeah,
that.
so like likeliness of cylinder being impacted. distance for the incident. Members with BA, fog, sort of. That's what some people have.
Yeah, I can't say that we've done many, if any, jobs that I come to mind where BA's been required, because normally it's a case of trying to have an open sort of area. If a vehicle's, say, inside a garage, we'll generally try and push the vehicle out of the garage. If it's been impinged by fire, well, the building's all burnt anyway, and in most cases, so often we can create a fog in that scenario. I'm just trying to think of scenarios off the top of my head. Yeah, no, I need a bit more assistance with you guys and your questions.
What about the relief valve, Ed? It's been a while since I've had a look at one where the relief valve used to actually relieve down near the either side of the vehicle in the boot.
Yep.
So if it was on fire and build up that pressure to the point where the relief valve needed to throw a bit of a flame out the side. So it used to be the old. I think you'd approach the boot on the angle. Was that the point?
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Actually, darn good question. And how when you guys get a call to a job, let's say, how long is it before what sort of time do you have to have before you're out the door? Because they vary in the country, don't they? So like in our case, we've got to be out the door in 4 minutes. What about some other brigade?
I would have said 8.
6 or 8 in the bush, Ed, normally.
Okay, thank you. So I want to put this scenario to you. So you get a call to a car fire potentially involving LPG, because remember, we're going to treat every car as if it's on LPG unless we know otherwise. So in our case, I'll just say in our case, we've got to be out the door within 4 minutes. So the car fire starts. The caller puts the call in. That's normally going to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Then we get paged and we're out the door in 4 minutes. So there's 6 minutes, right? It takes us however long to get to the job, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. If a gas cylinder in a vehicle has been impinged by fire, from jobs we've seen, from information we've received, if it's got direct contact with fire, it is highly likely that that cylinder is going to blevy at around the 11-minute mark. That's about the time you're going to get on scene. So if you get on scene and you see or you hear that whistling of the pressure relief valve, normally it's coming out of the side, one or the other side of the vehicle if they've been set up correctly. Some of the vehicles, like trucks, they'll be on the outside of the vehicle, so they, in a lot of cases, will be directly out the side or out from underneath. But you'll know if the pressure relief valve's going, because you'll find out what the colour of adrenaline is real quick, with that particular one. So if you guys are allowed out the door in 6 minutes, 8 minutes, you're right on that sort of time frame that a blevy there's a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to, but it's possible. Does that sort of answer your question, Steve?
Yeah, just run us through a little bit more about a blevy, Ed, and when a blevy might occur as opposed to when the relief valve might operate.
Okay, so you have first of all, a blevy is an abbreviation of what they call boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. So that's what happens is when a fire, we've just got a truck going past, so apologies for this. When a cylinder is involved in fire, and let's say that fire is impacting a certain area of the cylinder, it's starting to weaken the steel. And because that pressure is building up inside the cylinder, got that sort of pressure wanting to push out. And if that metal is getting hotter and hotter, and not that dissimilar to the red hot of a oxy-torch heating up the metal, eventually you're going to get that outward push of the cylinder. And at that point is when the cylinder would potentially rupture. And that's when your blevy is going to occur. Is that sort of helping you out, Steve, with your question?
Yeah, perfect, Dad. Thank you.
Now, are there other questions? Or would there something you'd like to see with the gear that we've got?
Someone just asked the size of a blevy.
The size of the blevy. Okay. I can't give you an exact answer on that because I've always ran the other way when I've, thought that the cylinder's going to go up. No, not really. Look, on videos that we've seen, some of the bullets, not that dissimilar to that 1,375 litre bullet that we saw. We've seen some training videos where that took, I think it was about 11 minutes as well.
Yeah.
And the area would have been, if it was in the middle of a footy field, you would have wanted to, and you were standing on the fence line, you wouldn't want to be standing much closer from that sort of size cylinder. Then we've seen stuff on TV in recent times where some of those road tankers have exploded. I think in the States or similar, those really big road tankers. I would hate to say how big an area that was, but it looked pretty massive. Let's say the size of the MCG or similar. Now we're just having a look at the questions at the moment. A bit hard to see. Sarah, can you help us out at all?
Yeah. If you have a car fire and the pressure relief valve is going, what can you do to prevent or mitigate a blevy?
Okay, cool down your cylinder. Where you possibly can, cool it down with as much as you can, because cooling it down is reducing that pressure, and it's helping along the journey of keeping that cylinder cool and keeping that a specific area getting that red hot and creating a weak point. It's not that dissimilar to a balloon. If you've got a balloon and you put a lit match to it, if you've got that right up to the balloon, well, it's going to pop. But if you the further away you took it, and it's not going to create as much heat. I realise that's not a great example, but that's the best that came to my mind right at the moment. Did that sort of answer that question?
Yeah, yep, I believe so. The other one there,
I've got nothing.
the other comment there is, okay, we had a comment saying that if you're en route or on scene and a cylinder has blevied, make sure you look up because there may be possible debris falling. Good point, Shane. Vertical cylinder cooling, build-up of ice treatment.
Could you say that again? You're breaking up a bit there.
Sure. From Ken, vertical cylinder cooling, build-up of ice. What's the treatment?
Yep. What's the treatment?
So if the pressure
don't really know what you're referring to.
So if the pressure relief valve is venting and there's
So you get an ice on the cylinder.
The pressure relief valve is venting.
And there's an
Oh, we
ice
just lost
build-up.
So you get an ice on the cylinder. How do you treat
if the vent,
just broken up a lot there. Sorry.
if the cylinder's venting and there's a build-up of ice, that's okay. You'd treat it the same way with the water fog, just trying to disperse your LPG, which would actually get rid of your ice as well.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We were just having a bit of reception issues there, so I didn't quite hear the question properly. So, anyone got other questions, or should I just go through some more notes wherever I've put them? But if you throw me more questions.
I got one. So, if you've got an MVA into, let's say, a shop or something, and you can't get the car out, how long is the flare off lines that you have on your FCV or your car?
Okay, the line that we have there wrapped up, that's 20 metres, and we have an additional 20 metres should we need it. We've never needed it. Because if that vehicle's, say, gone into the shop, and every situation's different, but fortunately, to date, we've never needed it, where a vehicle's gone into a shop and you can't get it out. Sometimes you've got to take the cylinder out of the vehicle. It's not uncommon. If it's a tricky situation, one of the very first jobs we had many years ago was a rollover fatality, and that was in the early days of LPG when everyone was super scared of it. We found that we were there unbolting the cylinder from under the from inside the boot of this upside down vehicle, and we took the cylinder to a local oval and burnt it off there. So we took the problem away if we couldn't attend to it there. Does that sort of help?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Have we got any? Sarah, can you help me out with any other questions? No?
There's a few more. There's a few more there, Ed, about relief valves. I think the one thing about a relief valve is that if the relief valve's actually operating, that's a good thing because it's relieving your pressure out of your cylinder. If you turn up to your car fire and the relief valve's actually going, that's a good thing normally. You've got to worry if it's not actually going, because then the pressure's building up in your cylinder.
Oh, I love it that you've done some LPG stuff over the years.
I think that's about all the questions at the moment. Did you have one, Aaron?
Steve, I really appreciate your assistance.
It's actually an LPG there.
Actually reminds me, we had a job, and I'm going to actually refer to my iPad. So I took photos of it. We had a job probably about a day now, where we got called to a service station out in Liverpool, and this gentleman had a station wagon, and he had a cylinder on the back of the station wagon, and it was filling it up from the outside of the vehicle. And he went in to pay and got back, and the vehicle was full of gas. Long story short, he had taken one of the 45-kilo cylinders from his home and decided that he was going to fill it up at the local service station. And I'll go through the photos. I hope you can see them. Right, it was a Ford station wagon. That photo there, it's very hard to see, but by the time we got there, there was ice all on the bottom of the vehicle, on the floor pans. That was the cylinder he had in the back of his car that he was filling up. He had set up a little a fitting, and the fitting, that's the bottom of the car again. He had a fitting at the outside of the vehicle, so he filled it up from there, but it was piped across with a copper pipe to the cylinder, and it wasn't all connected properly. So by the time he got back from paying for the cylinder, the car was full of gas, absolutely full of liquid gas. It was crazy, and that was some of the fittings that he had used. Did you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. Like we've got to the job, and we were called probably about 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the brigade first responded. So by the time we got there, it would have been about 25 minutes, half an hour after the initial call, and you still had the liquid or the vape, the liquid gas all over the floor pans and the mats. It was frozen, and it was just crazy to see. Do we have any other questions at all? Are we going along here fine, or?
Yeah, Eddie, just something to note from that job you've had there, that people filling those cylinders with automotive gas, obviously it's a different gas. They go and use it in their heater at home. It actually creates a different carbon monoxide in the house, and it's actually more dangerous than your standard LPG. So just something to make note of. People do it. It's a good way to scare them, so it'll actually kill you quicker than what a carbon monoxide leak will. So
yeah, you're spot on there, because that's like I was saying a bit earlier with those cylinders. The cylinders that you get for the houses, as I understand it, is 100% propane, where the the vehicle gas has got a lot of butane in it, like I was saying earlier, anywhere between 30 and 40% butane. So that's where your carbon monoxide's coming off, I believe. And they're terrible. They're terrible for your home units to use and for your barbecues. They'll wreck them, apparently. So I can't see anyone. So if you can see me and you've got questions, please go for it.
So you know how you said that like barbecue gas cylinders have like that smell. Do they put the smell into for car gas or not?
Yes. The gas. Most of the gas that we will deal with is got the ethyl mercaptan in it. It's the rotten cabbage smell. I was going to say Cabbage Patch Kid. I don't know why, but rotten cabbage smell. There are some industries that use odourless gas. So I'm just going to check my notes on that again, because you could get called out to a job. There's not that many, but the gases are a commercial propane that is often used in laboratories at times, and they use an odourless LPG, and some refrigerant units use an odourless LPG as well. We've never really come across it, but it is out there. It is out there because, like I was saying earlier, most of our events or jobs are vehicle related. Sometimes the barbecue cylinders, but mostly vehicle and forklifts, that sort of thing. Now, Sarah, can you got any more?
It was just a question there, Ed, about if there's an MVA with people trapped, you obviously don't flare. The rescue is obviously the first priority before you flare a vehicle.
Absolutely. And like I was saying, look, we fortunately haven't been in that position. Fortunately haven't been, but the priority is of course the patients. Sometimes there are situations that we may be able to take invasive action, and even something as simple as shutting a cylinder down, like I was saying earlier. If the cylinder hasn't been impacted, and even if it has been impacted, we can often just shut it down, isolate the situation, deal with the patients, and then deal with the cylinder later. But at the same token, there might be that scenario where we need to take the cylinder out of the vehicle. And look, fortunately, as I say, we haven't had to deal with that. I don't know if there's any people following tonight that have had to deal with that at all. And if so, let us know. I'd love to hear it, what you've done. No one?
Yeah, as a rescue operator, I've certainly come across that where we've removed the cylinder or had the local brigade remove the cylinder while we continue with the rescue, sit in a paddock or sit it somewhere well away from us. Yeah. Quite common at a rescue. Probably more, say, precaution.
Yeah, for safety. It's a safety issue, absolutely. So, no, that's good to hear, because as I say, we haven't had to deal with it. So hearing that you've done it or that's occurred, that's great to hear, because that's, I think, the way it should be, unless there's SOPs that state otherwise, and I haven't seen them. I've pretty much gone through most of my notes, most of my information. Is there anything else that anyone might have?
So when you're responding, what kind of, do you just wear your wildfire, or you wear your structural, or do you have a separate?
Yeah. Okay, we'll often go to jobs that are in our brigade area. If we get called out to a structure fire and then the cylinder's involved, we'll have our structure gear on. But normally speaking, we can quite happily and easily do those jobs in our wildfire gear, because sometimes you need to get in and under vehicles. You need to move around. The structure gear can be a bit restrictive. So it has, look, in the early days, we did carry yellow overalls. with us. So if we had structure gear on, we could put the overalls on. But we just came to the conclusion that the over trousers and wildfire gear was satisfactory for the job, and it was more comfortable. Let me tell you, gear can get pretty hot sometimes. We haven't got the overalls and that some of the rescue units have, but I don't think we really structured the wildfire gear's more than adequate. Any other questions?
Eddie, I used to see a lot of decanting as well as the burn offs. Do we still decant as well as burn off, or is that it gone now?
Yeah, look, in the early days, there was a lot of talk about the burning off decanting. And I'm going from memory now, so I'm more than happy to be corrected. But from memory, if we were to decant and put it into a cylinder, then we got to that scenario was who owns the gas. Now, of course, the person who owns the gas from the vehicle or whatever the situation, then we've got to give the gas back to them. How do you give the gas back to them if we've put it in a cylinder? We can give them the cylinder, and it just creates a lot of issues. So I remember our brigade management team at the time said, you know what, it's just going to be easier if it's anything up to say 100 litre cylinder from a car. It's more easier, convenient, and saves a lot of hassles. Just burn it off, lose the problem. So other brigades may do other ways, but that was the conclusion our brigade come up with all those years ago, and it hasn't changed. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. It's been a lot of years since I've done the rescue work and seen a decant. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Well, we might wrap it up. I reckon we've taken an hour of your time, and it's I think this has been great, very informative, and hopefully people have got something out of it. I suppose if there's other questions, what's the best way to get in contact with you guys? Montrose has got a website. Have you got an email address that maybe?
Yeah, look. My email address is eddie.titular. I think you've got my name in front of you on the screen, at montrosecfa.com.au, or otherwise you can connect with me. Quite happy to connect with you on Facebook or on Messenger. And if you want to have a chat, that's great. Look, I hope it's come across okay this evening. As I say, I was not in my comfort zone. I've been to get through it. I hope it's come across okay, and anything like that. But I hope it's come across okay.
No, you've done well, Ed. Thanks very much, and yeah, it's good that you've passed on some of your experience and your knowledge. It's really great. So I think next week Sarah's arranged Wayne Rigg to talk about aircraft operations, so that should be interesting as well. But yeah, we're getting some good topics going on this forum, and I think it's very beneficial for everyone in the state. So thanks for being a part of it, Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for asking me.
All right. Well, thanks all, and I might put your email up on the Next Gen site, Ed, just with the notes for this this broadcast. And if people have got any further questions, they can contact you and ask away. So
perfect. No worries at all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Sarah.
Cheers. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eddie, and thanks, Brad.
Bye.
Bye.